Hello, I'm Dean McKnight, and welcome to another edition of Taking Back Our Neighborhoods, an outreach program of Operation Our Town. Today, we've got a really terrific show for you. In case you wonder if we ever do anything right, today's program will illustrate not only that we're doing something right, but that other people want to do it right too. Today, our special guest is Bryan. Bryan, did I pronounce that right?
It's Barbin, but...
Barbin,
Mm-hmm.
Bryan Barbin. Bryan is a representative from Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Bryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I was a former Deputy Attorney General, coming out of law school from Pitt Law School, and I also served on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court before I decided to run at 50 for the state representative spot in Johnstown.
Thank you. And Randy Feathers, many of you will remember Randy from our previous shows. Bright young man and good looking too. I hate that when they have good looking guests. Randy, tell us about yourself.
Good morning, how you doing? Good to be back here again. I was 27 years with the state Attorney General's office in the Board of Probation and Parole. I retired approximately a year ago. At that time, I became a board member for Operation Our Town, and I've served now for a couple of years on the board, and I'm very proud to be as part of the board.
Representative Barbin, before I proceed, let me say what an honor it is to have these two esteemed gentlemen here. If anybody knows what's happening in the community, it's got to be these two individuals. And Representative, tell us, why are you here?
We decided 2 years ago, the mayor of our city believed...
And that's Johnstown.
The mayor of Johnstown decided that we needed to do something to directly help with the drug problem we were having in the city. We had our violent crime rate had spiked. He asked me to go see the McKeesport. They have an advisory committee on crime and violence. And then he asked me, what about the model that Altoona used? And I looked at the report. Judge Daniel Milliron at the time had run a commission prior to his becoming a judge, and so I went over to talk to Judge Milliron with Mayor Trigona, and we decided that Altoona had the best approach to the problem, dealing with the same issue, drugs and violent crime spiking in the city. And with the help of Judge Milliron and our mayor, we commissioned a crime and violence commission similar to the one that was done in Altoona 10 years ago to come up with recommendations to make a focused attempt to do something about a problem that we've never had in Johnstown before.
And Altoona and Johnstown have always been similar but dissimilar. They, factory towns, different industries, and football rivals, but when you heard the name Johnstown, you always got a smile on your face because you felt like they were neighbors. Am I correct?
We are neighbors.
And Randy, kind of remind us a little bit. We talked about the report that Judge Milliron, and forgive me, all of us local guys call him Danny because he's he's a great guy and a wonderful judge. Randy, tell us about remind us what Altoona was like before all this began.
Sure. Approximately about 8-9 years ago, we were having some serious drug problems. Not that we don't have our drug problems today, but we were being overrun by street gangs, the Bloods, the Crips. We were getting shootings within the city of Altoona almost daily at that point. We were basically outmanned and outgunned. I was contacted by Michael Fiore, Phil DeVoris, Joey Sheets from the Sheets Corporation, and sat down with them, and they proposed this Operation Our Town. And I've said this many times, in my 33 years in law enforcement, it was the best thing I've ever been involved in. It really, and not to be over dramatic, but it saved this city. I mean, I saw it firsthand. I was on the front lines, and I could see the wave coming over the curb. And we were able to stop that, put the finger in the dike and stop that.
Randy, you guys did a terrific job, and I remember those days. A person my age is pretty much removed from the youth groups and things. And so, but I remember picking up the paper every day. It was a headline. Every day the news would be broadcast about the problems. And quite frankly, we're a little spoiled because this program has been successful, Representative, and it brought business and individuals into the prevention and into the treatment area, which a lot of people don't think about anymore. That there's more than just a single objective. So tell us that you're planning to get together with Operation Our Town, and what do you want?
We have been working with.
You have with them?
And Randy was good enough to come over as an initial start. We gathered the business leaders together to sit down and explain just how the business being involved in the 4 parts of the problem. There's enforcement, and law enforcement needs some additional things that tight budgets make it difficult to do. But there's also housing. We have to have good rules that relate to our public housing. And we have to have good rules that relate to educating the youth to prevent them. Then we have to have rehabilitation that allows either intervention or absolute rehabilitation. And those things have to be coordinated, because if they're coordinated, if more people are working together on those problems, we could see what Altoona has experienced. And with our town, and with that approach of looking at all aspects of the problem, Altoona went from 10 years ago from a very high crime and violence rate, dropped about 400 points, went from 686 incidents per 10,000 down to 250. And that's what we're looking to do in Johnstown.
Repeat those numbers for us.
At the time, Altoona had a violent crime rate of around 685 per 10,000 population.
Okay.
They were able, with Operation Our Town, to drop that number back to one of the lowest in the state, and that was 250 per 10,000. Johnstown has moved into that exact same place. We're now as high from a violent crime percentage from recent numbers as Philadelphia. And the reason is the same reason that was experienced in Altoona. The gangs have come in and they've taken over selling drugs, and they're basically an area that's a substation for purposes of distributing drugs. And to stop it, you have to have all 4 of those entities, and you need the business community to participate.
And you're closer to Pittsburgh than we are.
Yeah.
And so it would seem to me.
And we also have Somerset, which is they're moving the drugs on the turnpike. So the drugs from Somerset can move to Johnstown quickly up 219.
Representative Barbin, I'm going to tell you the truth. When I look at the TV set, all I see is good things coming out of Johnstown. You've got the big hockey town thing, and now you've got the new program. What's the new program?
Vision 2025.
It looks like you guys are really going in the right direction to make something happen.
We are, and I think it's the example that our town is. You have to get everybody together moving on the same page. Your law enforcement has to be with all local, state, and federal, and your community has to be behind those other items that the community should deal with. Housing, educating the youth, and having a good plan for intervention, having a good plan for rehabilitation. But there is a lot of positive going on in Johnstown, and we're hoping to use the model of our town to make it even stronger.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Randy, you guys got to be proud of what you've done here.
We're very proud. I mean, but he hit on so many good points. I tell you, it's just not law enforcement. Law enforcement gets the front pages of things, but I mean, I've been to so many after-school programs that Operation Our Town has done. I just shudder to think how many kids that we've saved that we never hear about in the front page of the paper because of that. Prevention, treatment, these things are important. And I can see Johnstown turning it around. When he said about the crime rate, it hit me that, just for an example, he talked about housing. Well, we have a superstar down here in Cheryl Johns, who's probably been on this show.
Yeah.
She's very in the forefront of the housing situation. And I just saw a report a week or two ago that I think, and you're going to be amazed at this, all public housing in Altoona had 20 police calls in the whole year at the public housing.
What?
Calls, just calls.
Yeah,
And
20 calls.
That counts barking dogs and those type of things.
And that used to be daily.
Oh yeah,
used to be
homicides. I see Johnstown Public Housing has trouble with homicides over there, and we're getting 20 calls a year. And 10 of them might be barking dog calls. I mean, that just goes to show you how we turn things around. And this is a great place to live. We took back our neighborhood, and we're proud of it.
Yeah, that's something we forget. They're neighborhoods. They're neighborhoods.
Yep.
We're going to be back in just a minute. We're going to talk about some things that worked that made this Operation Our Town successful. Maybe we can share with Representative Barbin. Thank you. Be right back.
Most of the kids come from homes that are somewhat dysfunctional. A lot of times they don't have a parent at home that can help them with their homework. All they see is maybe the big brother who's been a drug addict. We have kids in the program actually whose parents have died from drug overdoses.
The human cost to our community is high, but drugs and crime also impact business.
Think about your own family. When my family goes out to shop and conduct commerce within the city or in the community in general, I think it's very, very important that we all have that peace of mind.
Welcome back. We've been talking to Representative Bryan Barbin from Johnstown. Excuse me for missing that name.
Quite all right.
Representative, and it's not nice on my part because I really respect what you're doing over there. And Randy Feathers. And Randy, is Johnstown the only place that's looking at this Operation Our Town?
No, we've been all over the state, myself and Michael Fiore, talking to different groups. We were up in Reading, and we were also, people from Erie came to Altoona to speak with us and meet with us. And also Johnstown. I mean, Johnstown to me is, as you always said, it's like a sister city, although we used to beat them in football all the time, but we still kind of feel sorry for them at times. But
we feel sorry for them. I think they beat us last time we played.
Probably,
I don't know that.
But and when I was with the Attorney General's office, Johnstown was part of my region, so I was very familiar with the problems up there. And so we went over, me and Michael Fiore went over and met with a group of people. And this guy here next to me, I mean, he's a driving force. I mean, you can feel his passion. A lesser man might have walked away from this problem already, because it's a tough problem. You have to bring people together that sometimes have different agendas, and it's easy to walk away and let somebody else handle it. But I got to commend him. He's a driving force over there, and things have gotten. I commented to him out in the hallway there that I've seen a big difference in the law enforcement up there in the last year.
Let me review for our listeners just for a couple minutes from the business standpoint, Representative, and how this came together from the business perspective. The people who put this together, Mr. Fiore, Mr. Sheets, and Mr. DeVoris, and many others of that ilk, are the sons of businessmen who have lived in this community and had businesses their entire lives. And they had a passion about this town and this area. And when all this was going on, and they got together with a group in an age group younger than mine and took over the leadership and said, we have to do something about this, okay? A new leadership emerged in this community. And these people became not just the leaders of Operation Our Town, but the leaders in a lot of other things. And they rallied people behind them, people that weren't necessarily big money givers, but they were participating in other ways. the newspapers, the TV stations, it was like a rallying cry, and people wanted to be part of it. And you were proud to be part of it. The ball caps, the things. And and now this word filters down. Young people are saying, well, I guess my dad's involved, I guess my uncle's involved, there must be something to this. And slowly but surely it spread from the major givers to the minor givers to the service givers to all the way down to the volunteers that do their job. And I think the second wave that came in was a sense of pride and a recognition that these people who had been working so hard all along, from the Attorney General's office to the recovery people, to the people in the probation offices and the courts, were proud of what they were doing because they were seeing some accomplishments. And that created a special environment. Now, Johnstown has some people like that. Do you think you're going to be able to get those people together?
I'm 100% sure of it. I'm 100% sure of two things. Number one, that the model for getting rid of this problem, the best model there was in the state was Dan Milliron's report. And number two, the best follow-up is the structure that is available through Operation Our Town. I couldn't be prouder of the fact that Randy and Mike were willing to come over to Johnstown and make that, to explain how it works over here, because it is the best model. I'm convinced it's the best model. And with our Visioning 2025, we're now in a position to take the model and move it forward in Johnstown.
Well, I'm proud of what you're doing. I'm proud to be a part of it. And if you're from Johnstown and you happen to be watching this, you should be very proud of your representative because he cares. And I hope you're going to get behind this. It was people that made it work. The thing that sticks most in my mind, we mentioned neighborhoods. Push out the pusher with a phone number. Randy, tell me, when that was instituted and that phone number became available, could you see the results?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and you hit on a good point. I mean, the money was great and crucial to Operation Our Town. Couldn't have done it without it, but it started a rally. It was like somebody getting a base hit and getting on first, and then next get another hit. Next thing you know, the bases are loaded, and the community really came together. And we talk about money. I always tell the story about an older lady calling us one day and said all she had was $10. Is that enough? And it was more than enough. It wasn't the money; it was the phone call, her getting involved, and push out the pusher. And we had the plates in the streets and everything. And I'd talk to the drug dealers. They were intimidated by push out the pusher because they knew that there was a million eyes on them all the time.
Yeah, I mean that was special in my mind because there was a place that you could go easily, and you didn't have to go through a lot of red tape, and you weren't afraid of retaliations.
Right.
You just made a phone call, and people responded to that. My friends responded to it, and it was a topic of conversation at dinner groups. Like you said, Randy, 1,000 eyes,
Right.
and. I live in a neighborhood just outside of Altoona in relatively new homes, and you think, well, that's not going to happen here. And yet, half a block away from my house, they arrested some young people for drugs, using drugs, pushing drugs. And, their parents were humiliated, and of course, the neighborhood was sad, but people got behind the campaign. And that's what Johnstown has to do. They've got to get behind your efforts and really say, hey, this is our fight.
And I would like to say we have that push out the pusher campaign as well in Johnstown, and it's already showing great results. And if anybody would like to know, if you have any information that's going to help the united police effort that we now have in Johnstown, our 800 number is 800-548-7500.
Hold on just a minute. Get a pencil, folks. You don't want to miss this because who knows? You may have relatives in Johnstown. Give us that again.
It's 1-800-548-7500. 7500, and it's being pushed very hard by our district attorney, by all of our local police and officers, and by our municipals.
And the courts are clogged up. The courts used to be clogged up with the drug cases. I used to see a page in the newspaper of people just arrested for drugs, and that's kind of disappeared. Randy, am I correct?
It has, yeah.
It's still there, but diminished.
Right. Well, let me say, go back to the Johnstown situation. I know the people up there. I know the District Attorney Callahan, Kevin Price is a detective up there, the Chief of Police, the judges. It's in place. They have the right people. There's no question in my mind that there's the right people in place to get this thing going. I've met some of the business leaders over there. They're ready to go, and they have a leader here, and that's what you need. And I think the recipe's there for them to turn this thing around.
That's terrific. I mean, folks, and let's not forget, we're still not out of the woods. There's still people out there that need help. You can continue to contribute. We've talked about the contributions. Randy mentioned $10, $5, your time. We have these organizations like Contact Altoona and things that are always looking for volunteers. I remember we had a lady from Contact Altoona here, and she gave us some number of astronomical proportions about the number of phone calls they get. I mean, it's all part of the community effort. It's all part of the community effort. Johnstown's kind of we have what we consider Juniata and some things, but Johnstown's has kind of a fragmented environment. There's Westmont, and are they all part of the Johnstown municipal area?
In my representative district, it's Johnstown, and there's 50,000 people in the suburbs around it. So there's Richland and Adams Township and Lower Yoder and Westmont and Southmont, and all of those places are affected. And when I write a letter, it says Johnstown, Pennsylvania. It doesn't say Westmont, Pennsylvania. It says Johnstown. We're all Johnstown,
all
just like you're all Altoona.
We're all in this together.
Yep.
We're all in this together. And you know, seeing two guys like yourself, you worked for the Attorney General's office. You worked for the Attorney General's office. When you started, was the drug problem as bad as it is now?
No, I mean, it peaked. I mean, there's always a problem. There's still a problem today, but you know, the problem, heroin today has really changed the scope of things, I think. It's a drug that's just devastating. Now you throw the prescription drug problems that we're having, and the cocaine's never gone away. So you start adding these things up, and the problems, problems worse. I mean, we have better roads. 99 I always talk about has opened up this area a lot of different ways. The turnpike, but it's also let these drug dealers travel a little better to get here. I mean, you have the internet. It's a different world.
We're going to be back in just a minute. We're going to talk about the opportunities that young people have today to get in trouble and why we need to do something about that. Be right back, folks.
Operation Our Town's mission: facilitate partnerships between the community and business to fight drug use and crime through proven law enforcement, treatment, and prevention techniques.
The Gloria Gates Memorial Foundation, our main goal is to try to break the cycle of poverty. And in order to do that, we have to address the factors that are involved in poverty.
Because of strong financial support from area business and an energized effort from citizens in our community, Operation Our Town has made a positive impact in our neighborhoods.
I've seen the results. That just made it a no-brainer as far as me wanting to be involved and involving our business in it as well.
A lot has been accomplished, but is the fight over? Of course not.
If we didn't have an Operation Our Town, then some of these programs wouldn't exist. Really, it helps change some lives.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking to two individuals who have given parts of their life and tirelessly worked to make our communities a better place. And I really haven't asked them much about them, and that's not fair because these are two special individuals. Randy, tell us about yourself. How did you get into law enforcement?
Well, my uncle was an Altoona policeman, and he was a sort of a mentor in my life. So that probably had a lot to do with it. But basically, I really wanted to get involved in helping people. And being in law enforcement, I believe, is the best way, because you're right there, sort of on the street, and you're helping people, and it's very important to do that.
And what actually do you do in the Attorney General's office?
The Attorney General's office, we do all type of different stuff. We have offices all over the state. My primary job is drug law enforcement, but we also did general criminal investigations. I'm involved in various different investigations. So it's sort of like a detective type work.
Now, I had a brother that was an Altoona policeman.
I worked with him.
Dwayne.
Mm.
And I have another brother that was a state police officer. What was your uncle's name?
Ziegler. Bernard Ziegler was his name.
Bernie Ziegler.
He was a magistrate too.
Yeah. Oh my. Good. You know, we're a small town. Everybody.
Oh yeah.
You deserve recognition. He deserves recognition. Yep. Anyhow. And tell us about Representative Barbin. Tell us about your history. How did you get in law enforcement?
It's a little different story for the Attorney General. When I worked for the Attorney, my journey started because I wanted to be like my grandfather. And my grandfather, Andrew Gleason, was very involved in Johnstown.
Hold it. Gleason, Johnstown, it's like history.
4 generations of his family, or 4 generations of my family, have been lawyers in Western Pennsylvania. We've been in Houtsdale and Du Bois and Johnstown. And 4 of my brothers and sisters are lawyers. My identical twin brother was the criminal law director for the state of Ohio and a U.S. attorney in 4 different major cities in the country, handling drug law issues. My sister was did non-felony, non-felony or non-jury felony trials in Philadelphia. So she saw, and she worked with me as well in the Attorney General's office. When I was in the Attorney General's office, I was a tax, finance, securities person. I was the person who put together the technical side of issues that involve financial crimes or otherwise. And I did some civil litigation as well. When I came home to practice with my grandfather, we've had 4 generations of lawyers in Johnstown. He spent his life trying to make Johnstown better. I wanted to try to build on what he had done, and I didn't want to see Johnstown fall victim to what happened in Altoona. So when I found out what Altoona had done to answer that problem, I wanted to do the same.
Representative, I'll tell you what, the Gleason name is one that it stands out in history. Like some names here, you got to be very proud.
I am
very proud to be a representative of that family. And were you satisfied with your career when you left?
Yes. My grandfather's rule was you needed to be out. You need to be there, accomplish what you want to accomplish, but you should also be in the community. And my trial then brought me back to Johnstown. There was an opening, and I ran for state representative with the hope that I could be a positive force in bringing Johnstown back to where it was in those days when Johnstown played Altoona in football.
I'm proud to know you. Proud to know you. And Randy, congratulations to both of you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Today, though, the problem, from when you first got into law enforcement, it probably seems to be a little different. Today, these designer drugs and things are using bath salts, and kids 7, 8 years old have the opportunity to mix things up in their bedroom. And that's kind of crazy. Randy, do you see that happening? Am I mistaken?
Sure. Like I said before, it's a different world. The internet, you can actually get on the internet and find out how to make these things. And these kids, they grew up with computers in their cribs. So they know how to use the new technologies much better than we have. It's just a different world, different problems. Drugs are so much worse. You talked about the heroin, and the methamphetamine is making a nice comeback again. It's very different. It's very violent too.
Yeah, these people. I see some of these cases with physical crimes that appear to be related to the need to satisfy a drug-related problem. And on this show, we've had individuals who's lost family, and we've cried together. And we've had a young man who got involved when he was like 7 or 8 years old with sports athletes encouraging him to do that. And it's so good to see two communities, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, let's go with what works, and let's make it work for everybody. If I'm driving through Johnstown and I see that push out the pusher sign, I know what it means. And suddenly you got a blanket instead of just a feather to try and stomp out some of this stuff. So what's the next move? What happens now with Operation Our Town, Randy? I know we're going forward and doing a lot of things.
We are very strong. We continue to be strong. We're growing. Believe it or not, we're continuing to grow through Shauna's leadership. Shauna Hoover, our executive director, we just did a golf tournament in September last month, raised $60,000, $70,000. And that is the community support we get. When people hear Our Town, they want to give, they want to be involved. And so we're getting stronger. We have give out grants, and we've evolved so much from just knocking doors down and arresting people. You know, we're very much involved in the community, helping kids and making this place a better place to live.
Randy, if I would have played in that golf tournament, I would have needed the help of a detective to find my golf ball. I'm not a very good golfer. Representative Barbin, tell me what's next for Georgetown.
Well, we're going to continue to stay really closely connected to Randy and Operation Our Town, because it's a model that works. And what we're going to try to do in conjunction with this Vision 2025 is bring more people towards the realization that you need an independent agency, a local agency who knows what the local problems are at each level, law enforcement, education, rehabilitation. They have to be there. So we're in the process of organizing a board, and once we organize the board, our short-term view would be to do it exactly the same way that Our Town did. You have to have an executive director, because you need someone to do the day-to-day work, so that the board members can reach out and bring more people into the process. The more people you have, we have a lot of good people in Johnstown. Same thing's true in Altoona. There's way more good than there is evil, and there are way more people that are willing to actually put their shoulder to the stone and move a heavy stone. And heroin is a heavy stone.
These round tables that Operation Our Town have created, it seems to me have been very effective. And one of them that I wouldn't have thought of was the one that includes the pastors and the leaders of the churches and
that's essential.
Yeah.
Those people have the strongest moral statement that can move the majority of those people out there good. They're just looking for a little direction. I think that the pastors have to be part of it.
Those roundtables, and they include a lot of people that normally might not get involved, and suddenly you see, just as I've done with this show, I've seen the other side of life, a life that my home was closer to the railroad tracks than the railroad station. We didn't have a lawnmower because we didn't have any grass. But that neighborhood now is kind of different than when I lived there. But growing up, we didn't have those problems. It was a great life. We want that same great life for our kids. And speaking of neighborhoods, I've got to show the audience something. I want them to know what's in this book, okay? It's little notes and Shauna and some information, because a friend of mine accused me of having a mirror in here so that I could look at myself. And we laughed about that, but I promised him that I would clear that up before this was all over. So what can we ask the people in Johnstown to do? What can they do to get behind you? Is there a phone number? Is there somebody they call? Somebody they send money to?
I think the best start for Johnstown is to participate in the Vision 2025 process. And the best way to do that is contact the Community Foundation, because Mike Kane is one of the spearheads of the process, or any of the other people that are on the board. We have Bill Palachik, who runs a local steel company, is very involved in this project. So is Ed Sheehan, and so is Mark Pasquarello. All long-term families for the
And all names that you recognize. And,
Yeah.
and folks, you've got to know somebody. If you live in that Johnstown area, you know somebody. Get in touch with them. Volunteer your time. Volunteers $5 to $10. You know, just get involved. Just show your support. Write a letter to the editor and say this is the right direction. You're doing a terrific job over there. I can't tell you how proud I am of you. And now that I know your family background, I'm proud just to know you.
My grandfather was a great man.
May I call you Bryan?
You-
I don't want to
please.
disrespect you, but I feel like you're such a good guy. I want to call you by your first name. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a terrific show for me. I've met a wonderful man that I probably wouldn't have met the other way. Barbin, Representative Bryan Barbin from Johnstown, and our friend Randy Feathers, who's given so much to this area and done so much. Now it's our turn. We need to give so much, and we need to do so much. Until next time, push out the pusher and stay safe. Thank you.